everybody. All right, it's 2 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Holly Bonar. I'm one of the technical application specialists here at De Novo Software. Today we're going to be talking about getting started in FCS Express Flow 7. For this webinar, we're going to kind of start from scratch, take a look at the software, and kind of see how to go from the very beginning of things all the way to having a saved layout that you can use to analyze your data over and over again going forward. So take a look at, here's just some of the topics we're going to talk about as we're going through our getting started. When we first get into the software, we'll do an overview of what it looks like when you're in the workspace, the tab and ribbon system, how to find all of the settings, and where everything is located. We'll talk a little bit about the FCS Express user options, how to change any of those options to kind of suit whatever workflows that you need, and then kind of take a look at the workspace and how things are set up. We will talk about importing data files, like how to bring those raw data files from your instrument directly into the software to analyze, and then how to organize them within our data list so that they're easily accessible and that you can use them to navigate around. From there, we will be creating plots and applying gates to our data so that we can set up our gating hierarchies. And then we'll be generating statistics for all of that data and talking about the different ways that you can display that within your layout. All of our statistics and information about our data is shown in something called a token. And so we'll talk about tokens a little bit, how to use them in your layout and how they will update in real time as you change your data. One of the really nice things is spreadsheets. So we'll talk about how to use those, how to bring those within your layout in order to organize your data, and how we can use those to perform calculations. And then when we're done with getting those pieces of the layout set up, we can talk about batch processing so that we can automate those tasks that you're doing at the end of your layouts, at the end of your analyses across all of your data files. And we can use that to export results to PDFs, Excel, PowerPoint, things like that, generate our reports, and get all of the analyses out of your analysis that you're looking for. And at the end, I'll show you how to save that layout as a blank template to use going forward, or how you can create linked or embedded layouts so that you can bring that data back up later to look at a later time point. Okay, so with that, there we go. So we'll go ahead and show you when we launch our software. So I'm just going to go ahead and click our FCS Express icon to launch the software. First thing that pops up is to select a user profile. We don't have any other user profiles set up, so I'm just going to choose our default. And the first thing that pops up is the Welcome to FCS Express 7 window. This window contains a good amount of information, resources that you can use to help you with the software, but it also gives you access to the workspace. And so to me, this is split up into kind of 3 little sections. The middle section and the left-hand side are more the resources area. So you can find videos to kind of help you answer questions, or if you get stuck on doing something in the software, you can come here to watch a video. There's also some longer form webinars there for other topics like compensation, high dimensional data reduction, things like that. Some examples, frequently asked questions, our knowledge base articles are here, and those can be really helpful as well. You can also get to our manual and to a support button. So if you just can't find it or you don't want to mess around with looking things up, you can always email us at support@denovosoftware.com if you need some help with the software. We also have a number of links over here on the left-hand side. These goes directly to our website. There's always going to be a couple links telling you what our most recent version is that's available for download. So right now we're using 7.24.0030. We also have whatever new things that we have available in the software will be linked here. So we've got our Prism exporting that we can work on, our new FCS Express Academy, as well as our antibody titration template. So these will all just take you to our website. On the right-hand side, is sort of the access side. So here we can do a new layout, something completely from scratch, or we can open an existing layout if something we've built in the past that we want to now bring up and use to analyze data. We can do that as well. These four options down here are our recently used templates. So templates that you've been in recently or you've been using them will show up here. This can be super helpful if you're kind of using the same layout over and over again. It'll be listed here, and it just makes it easier to get to that. That way you don't have to navigate towards it. But we're going to start with a whole brand new layout. So I'm going to click that. And make sure, bring some files over here. All right. So when we first open the software, this is what we see. So I think the first thing you'll notice is that FCS Express looks and feels very much like PowerPoint, or feels very much like an Office product. And that's by design. Everybody uses Office products now, especially PowerPoint, Word, things like that. So we knew that if we made the software to look and feel like PowerPoint, that it would be easy to use, right? Because everybody kind of knows how to use those softwares. So as you're going along, you'll notice that a lot of the things in the software functions very similarly to how it does in PowerPoint. So kind of think to yourself, if you're struggling with how to do something or to doing some sort of task, kind of think to yourself, how would I have done this in PowerPoint? Because more than likely, it's going to be very, very similar to how you would do it in FCS Express. So give that a try if you're struggling. So we see up here at the top, we have our tab and ribbon system, very similar to PowerPoint, where everything's sort of organized by task, by what it does. So if we go to the Insert tab, you'll see that all of the different things that we can insert into a layout are very similar to the things you could insert into a PowerPoint presentation. And they range from non-flow cytometry type objects. So if I want to insert a text box or a shape or something like that, we can do that here. And then as we move in this direction, we'll see the objects that are more flow analysis related. So histograms, color dot plots, things like that are all here. And then we also have some objects that are used for data analysis. So I mentioned our integrated spreadsheets are here. We can insert, as well as some chart items, things that you might find in Excel, like bar charts and pie charts and things like that. So these are all insertable objects that can go into our layout. If we go to our design tab, we can change kind of what this overall looks like. So if I want to make this a landscape instead of portrait, I can do that here. I can change the size, the margins. We also have this layout button here. So if we choose this button, you'll see we have a number of different templates that you can start with. So let's say you want, a 3x3 plot set up on your page. You can do that and they'll already be organized for you. It's very similar to PowerPoint where you can have different slide types and you can insert them. They can help you build your presentation. I'd say most of the time people will start from a blank screen so they can really customize this to look however they want. But if you need a nice place to start, this can be a good place to start. Okay. Before we get into the rest of this, I want to take a look at the FCS Express user options. So if we go to File and then Options, you'll see this window pops up. So the FCS Express user options are all of the different settings that FCS Express uses to control how the software works. And this gets pretty detailed and pretty granular. So you can really customize FCS Express to handle things and show data pretty much however you want. And it can be as simple as, what do my plots look like? So if we come to our plot section of the options, and then all of the different things that you can change about all of the different plots are here. So for example, if you want a certain thing for a title, you can come to the title section and kind of customize what that looks like. And then that way, when you insert a plot, it will look exactly the way you want it to look rather than just use the default settings. Things like the statistics, how do I want my statistics named? What sort of statistics do I want to show up in my statistic boxes when I add them? All of those are contained here. One of the things I like to point out with the user options is the performance section. So you'll see that when we start adding data into our layout, FCS Express will update automatically. So as we move our gates, as we move things around and update the plots, everything will update automatically in real time. And if you find that that's causing a performance problem, if you see things kind of slowing down, you can always come into this user options and turn this off so that it doesn't update in real time. And so you would find that under the performance section here, and you can just uncheck this box. The other thing I like to point out is under data loading in the FCS Express file options, and that's instrument specific settings. So one of the really cool features of FCS Express 7 are these instrument-specific settings. And what they do is that the software looks at the data files that you're bringing into your layout to see what instrument they came from. And based on the keyword of that instrument, it will apply specific settings to those data files. And this can actually be really helpful if you find that you're doing a lot of manual scaling changes. It's particularly common with forward and side scatter parameters. If you are having to rescale things or change the way your axes look, you can create some instrument specific settings so that those manual changes that you're making can be applied automatically as soon as the data files come in. And it can do it in an instrument specific manner so that if you're scaling things that come, say, from the Cytoflex, but not things that come from Cytec, then it will only apply those settings to that particular instrument. This is just something to keep in the back of your mind. If you're doing a lot of manual scaling, you can check this out, and you can always reach out to us for help when it comes to this. We're happy to help you take a look at your data and figure out the best way to use these settings so that they help you out. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and we'll get started here with our workspace. So we'll see down here in the bottom part of the screen for our workspace, we have what I call gray space and white space. All of this space can be used to do your analysis. Any objects can be placed here. They always function the same way, whether they're in the gray space or the white space. The important difference between these two is that the white space is what will be on the printed page or on the slide if you were to export a PowerPoint presentation of your data analysis. So anything that's in the gray space is not going to show up on a PDF that you export or anything like that. So keep that in mind as you're building your analyses, but feel free to use the entire space. A lot of times people will put text boxes or other images, things in the gray space, so stuff that's helpful to them to have as part of their analysis, but they don't necessarily need it to show up on this page. Okay, over on the left side, we have some windows that are docked. We have our data list over here and our gate navigator. The data list is the window that is going to hold our data files that we're going to use during our analysis. It doesn't actually move them from where they're located, either on your network or on your local computer, but it just kind of keeps them all in one space. The gate navigator is going to show us our gating hierarchy. So as we're building our analysis, we'll see our gates start to pop up here, and they will organize into parent-child hierarchies so that we can see how things are organized, right? So as we're building things, kind of keep an eye on this window over here and watch as things appear and can be moved around. Both of these windows are what we call dockable windows, meaning you can have them kind of stuck to the left, right, or the bottom of your screen. And that just keeps them accessible to you, but out of the way of your analysis and nothing sitting on top of here. But they are dockable, meaning they can be undocked. So if I grab one of these windows here and I just drag and pull it out, you'll see that it can be undocked from the side of the window. And now it's floating on top of my analysis. I can put it wherever I want. If I have a second screen, and a lot of people have second screens now, I can actually move it to the second screen and it still functions exactly the same way. That helps me. I can undock this guy and I can move this off the second screen if I want as well. And then this just gives me more workspace here where I can put plots and I can actually see what's going on. I find it helpful to keep these windows docked. That's why when we open the software, they're automatically docked because we found that it's actually pretty helpful to have them docked, especially when you're building a layout. But we can redock these at any time by dragging it and then hovering over one of these sides. You'll see if we hover, it'll tell us where it's going to dock, and then I can drop it, and then it will dock there. And if I want to put this one back up to the top, I can come over here and hover and put it here. Okay. You also have this little push pin. So right now it's pinned so that it's open. And if I unpin it, it will actually hide. It will actually hide to the side. Oh, I've got a bunch of them here. Here we go. To the side. So it's actually still docked, but now it's hidden off to the side. And when I hover over that tab, it will open back up, let me do what I need to do. And then when I go back to my layout, it will hide back. So there's a couple different ways that you can handle these dockable windows. And there are quite a few windows in the software that show up as dockable windows. So you'll see as we kind of go through, some other windows will pop up, but that they're dockable and you can kind of put them in whatever orientation works for you. Okay. So the first step to building our analysis is going to be to bring in data files into our data list. And remember, the data list is just a place to hold the data files that we're going to be working with. So there's a couple ways to do that. And I think you'll find as we go through this, there are often a couple different ways to do the same things. So that just helps, everybody kind of does things a little bit differently. So if you see me doing it one way, there's probably another way that you can do something in the software. You will notice that dragging and dropping is very common in FCS Express. So if you're coming from another software, like say Flojo, where double clicking is used quite a bit, in FCS Express, it's dragging and dropping. So when you're going to do something, try dragging and dropping. A lot of times it's going to give you what you're looking for. So for the data list to that end, we can hit the plus sign here to add some data files. It's going to open up a window when we do that. And I'm just going to go to my data file. And then I can click on a file and choose open. And it's going to add this file to the data list. The other way we can bring data files in is actually opening the file outside of FCS Express in our Windows Explorer. Navigate to the folder where it's located, and then highlight whatever we want to bring. Whoops. And we can drag and drop it directly into the data list, and it will bring it in that way. So whichever of those two ways is easiest for you, feel free to add your data to the software that way. Okay. Once our data files are in here, we can use the arrows to move the numbers, the files up and down. If having them in a certain order is important, if you're building panels, which we're not going to get to today, but a lot of times if you're doing multi-tube panels, if you're doing things like stained and unstained or stimulated and unstimulated, having those files in a certain order can be important. So you can use these arrows to reorganize them however you want. Use the X button to remove them. You can also highlight multiple ones, hit the X to remove them from the data list, and then we can always come back here and bring them back. Okay. So now we've got data files in our data list. And the next step is to actually just bring this data into our layout and to start drawing plots. And again, there's a couple different ways to do that. We can always go to the Insert tab. So if we want to insert something into our layout, we go to the Insert tab, choose one of the plots that we want to insert here, and then direct insert it in directly. I think dragging and dropping from the data list is by far the easiest way to do this. So I'm going to come over here and select my first file, drag and drop it into the white space. And the first thing that's going to happen is the select plot types window is going to pop up. And from here, I can select the plot type that I'm interested in adding. And so this would be the same thing as if I had come to the Insert tab and just clicked one of these to insert. So I'm going to choose a density plot, and it's going to bring this in. And remember, everything similar to PowerPoint, everything that we're bringing into our layout is an insertable object, right? So that means we can move it to wherever we want. We can resize it just by clicking on the button or the vertices here and resizing it. If we've made a change to this, we can come up to our undo button. So we laugh that this is probably the most important button in all of FCS Express, is the ability to undo what we just did, just in case we've done something wrong. So there's quite a few undos. So all of those things that I did, I can just keep clicking back to get back to where I wanted to be. Okay. So we have a plot here. In order to change our parameters, we can just click on the X or the Y axis, pick one of the, you'll get a drop-down menu of all the parameters that are as part of that data file. We'll do forward scatter and side scatter. So we can change our parameters to what we need. And then we can add some plots or add some gates to this. So if we go up to the gating tab, choose one of our shapes here. I would say polygon's probably the most popular because it's the easiest to customize. And for polygons, we're going to click around population. And we need to connect the dots. So we can either find the first dot and click on it. We can also hit the space key on the keyboard and it will automatically connect it for us because sometimes it's hard to find that first dot we first started clicking. When you connect the dots, you're going to get the create new gate window pop up. And here we can just give our gate a name. We can choose whatever color we want if we want a different color. There are some other gate properties here that you can take a look at. If we open this up, we can choose, if we've got other gates here, we could choose our parent gate if we want. We can emphasize the events if we need those dots to be bigger, which can be really helpful if we're doing rare event analysis. We can make this an exclusion gate if we want to, so that we're looking at things outside of this gate. I would say most of the time, people don't need to change these gate properties. Most of the time, they just need to name their gate and give it a color. So we'll do that here. And then we have our gate now on our plot, and we have some preliminary statistic information that pops up. So anytime you draw a gate in FCS Express, by default, you're going to get the name of that gate and the percent gated cells of what's in that gate. So this particular gate is 72.66% of all of the events. If you look over here at our gate navigator, you'll see that the cells gate that we've just created has popped up as we've drawn it. So the gate navigator will update automatically in real time as we're adding things to our layout, and it will organize itself accordingly. So if we insert another gate that's only looking at our cells, it will show up under here. Okay. Next thing we want to do is just start adding some plots that's gated on our cells. So again, the easiest, we could come back over here to our sample one and drag and drop it to put another plot here. But the easiest way to do that is to take this gate and drag and drop it into the white space. And you can see how when I'm dragging this gate around in the plot, it moves around accordingly. But when I drag it outside of the plot, it snaps back to where it was. So you don't have to worry about, the software will remember where that gate placement was. You don't have to worry about losing the exact placement when you drag and drop it out of the plot. Okay, so I'm going to drop it into the white space. And so what we did here is we actually duplicated this plot by dragging this gate out, and we applied this gate to the plot. So now we have exactly the same plot as we have over here, only we're just looking at the cells that were in that gate that we dropped onto our layout. I'm going to go ahead and click on the parameters to change them. And now I can go to my gating tab to add another gate on this. Okay. Okay. So now we have our lymphocyte gate. Okay. So I'm just going to go through, add a few more plots to get our gating hierarchy. As I'm doing this, watch over here on our gate navigator to see how that will update in real time as we draw things. We'll try a rectangle gate here. Call the CD3. Got this guy over here. 4, 8. Okay. On this plot, I'm going to go ahead and insert our quadrants. So that's also under our gating tab. If I click on the quadrants and then I click on our plot, you'll see that our create new quadrants window pops up. So in FCS Express, quadrants are also gates as well. So you're going to get the same option to create those quadrants as you did when you were going to create a gate. So you're going to have the option to give things a name if you want. You can also change the parent gate. I would say most of the time you're probably not going to do that, but you do have the option here. Quadrants work by creating a quadrant set. So we're going to create a quadrant set of 4 quad gates. And by default, it's just going to order them numerically. So since this is the first quadrant set we built, we're going to call this Q1. And then it's going to name the quads accordingly based on the parameters that were on the plot when you drew the quads. So we can customize this. So if we didn't want the fluorochrome here, we can always delete it. And then you're going to get this little diagram that's going to kind of show you what they're going to be named. And we're just going to name them with the pluses and the minuses based on the quadrants. So we have double positive, double negative, and then the single positive for either of the parameters, okay? So I would say most of the time when you're inserting quadrants, you can just hit OK. You don't need to customize this, but you certainly can if you want to. You hit OK. And now we've got our quadrants, and you can see that our quadrants are showing up appropriately under our hierarchy here, right? Um, as we move gates, as I said before, everything updates in real time. So as we move things, you'll see the plots are all updating. The statistics are all updating as well. And if we wanted to turn this off, we could do that in the FCS Express user options, okay? One thing about the gate navigator, our hierarchies over here, this is part of the dockable window, right? So this is part of our analysis, but it doesn't actually show up in our layout. If you'd like the hierarchy to actually show up on the webs or on the white space so that it can be printed as part of the PDF, you can come to the Insert tab and insert something called the gate view. So I'm going to click on that, insert that maybe over here, and we'll go ahead and expand it a little bit bigger. I'll move it down here instead. Yeah, that works. Okay, so we have our gate view on here. You'll see that it looks just like our gate navigator, only now it's on our white space, so that way we can have it as part of our layout. They both function exactly the same way. So the gate navigator and the gate view are both dynamic windows, meaning that things will change. They will update as we're making changes to our layout. You can also use them to access the properties of any of these gates. So for example, our lymphocyte gate here, notice that I used a lowercase letter here. So maybe I want to change this. I want to change the name of this gate. So instead of deleting this and starting over, I can simply come to the gate navigator or the gate view, double click on it, and then we'll see the edit lymphocytes, the properties of that gate. Here I can choose, I can rename it if I want to. If I want to make it a different color, I can do that as well. Some of those settings that were in that window when we first created a gate are here. So if I want to turn things on or off, I can do that here as well. If I hit OK, everything's going to update. So that gate navigator updated the color and the name change. It also updated on the plot itself. And if we had multiple pages in this layout, it would update across the entire layout as we went through here. Okay. We can also move things around in our hierarchy within the gate navigator. So let's say if I wanted my CD3 population, instead of being gated on my lymphs, I wanted it to be gated on my cells, I can simply click and drag this gate and drop it on top of my cells gate. And now the hierarchy has changed. And so my CD3 population is now a parent or a child of my cells gate instead of my lymphs gate, and back again. So this can actually, not only can it be put on in your layout to show what's going on in your data analysis, but you can also use it dynamically to make changes and things. Okay. Next thing we want to do is add some statistics. And of course, there's always a couple different ways that we can do this. The quickest and easiest way to add stats to your layout is by simply adding a statistics box. So on any plot in your layout, we can right click and choose statistics. And then depending on what's on your plot, whether you have quads or just gates, you can choose the gate or the quad statistics. So I'm going to choose gate statistics here. And we're going to get this statistics window. If we want to, you notice there's a number of statistics here that we may or may not want. If we right click on our stats plot and choose format, we're going to see another dockable window pop up on the side of our window, our workspace. And this is going to be the format stat of the statistics. So we can change the statistics that are here either by checking or unchecking. So let's say we don't want the geometric mean, maybe we don't want the overlay, or maybe even the file name. But we do want the gate, and we want the number of events and the percent gate itself, everything, okay? So we can check and uncheck here. We can say what decimals we want. There's other things in here that we can use. So now we have our statistics box. I think of this as kind of like the quick and dirty method for getting statistics into our layout. Quick because you right click statistics and there it is. And you can pretty easily come over here and select the ones that you want and you don't want. dirty because there's not a whole lot we can do to format what this statistics box looks like. If we highlight it and we come up to the text tab here, we can change the font to whatever we want it to. We can change the size of it to something else. But in terms of other ways to customize what this looks like, there's really not much I can do here. Like these titles are going to be the same. This shading is going to be the same. The other issue is that I have gait statistics here. I can't really choose the gait that I'm showing here. If I'm only looking for, say, this 32.9% statistic, I want my lymph percentage, but I'm not particularly interested, say, like in the cells percentage. I can't uncheck this. I have to show because it's the gait statistics box. I'm going to get all the statistics for all of the gaits in my layout. Right now, that's not a big deal. I don't have a lot of gaits here. But if you get in a bigger layout that has quite a few gaits or your hierarchies are a little bit more complicated, these gait statistics boxes can be quite large and unwieldy. Let's turn this back to something I can actually read. There we go. They can get a little unwieldy and they can take up a lot of space in your layout. So if you're looking for quick statistics, this is an excellent way to get a very quick idea. But there's probably other ways to add statistics to your layout that are a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and you can customize them to look exactly the way you want for your presentation. It is important to note that statistics in general in FCS Express are tied to a specific plot. And it's important to know where that plot is coming from or where that statistic is coming from and what plot it's associated with so that you know what statistics you're looking at. So you can see from the statistics plot, the statistics window here, it says gait statistics for plot 4, right? So we're looking at the data that is coming directly from this plot. So if we look at, for example, our cells gait, in plot 4, the cells are 100%, it is 100% the cells gait, right? Because this plot is gated on the cells. But if we were looking at the gait statistics for this plot, so we'll right click statistics. We'll look at this guy. Oops. Parameter. If we look at the percent gated cells for the cells here, it's 72.7% because this statistics plot is coming from this one, and this statistics box is coming from this plot. So that's true across all of FCS Express, that your statistics are specific to the plot that they're coming from. We had a really great question just pop through. How do we know which plot is plot 1 or plot 4 or whatever number it is? We can see that quickly by just hovering over a plot. So if we select something and we hover over it, you'll see it pop up here where it says dense 4. This one is plot 3. This one is plot 5. So everything in FCS Express, whether it's a plot or a statistics box or a text box, whatever objects you're adding to your layout, they're all given a number. They're all given an ID. And everything is, you can see what those numbers are when you hover over them. So if I hover over this, you'll see gait statistics for plot 4. Our gait view is object number 7. You can also see those plot IDs by using our other navigators to look at the elements of your layout. So if we go to our View tab, we can come to the Navigator section. We already have our Gait Navigator docked automatically, but the Layout Navigator and the Data Navigator are also really good tools for seeing what your essentially like what is all part of your layout. So if we go to the Data Navigator, it's going to show you the Data Navigator is organized by the data files that are in your layout. So right now we're just looking at sample 1 because all of these plots, everything in here is looking at sample 1. And if we open our little caret, you'll see these are the objects that are the plots that are in the layout, right? So they get numbered sequentially as you add them. So we have 3, 4, 5, and 6. When we click on one of these, it will highlight in the layout to show you where it's at. And it also works the other way around. So if I click on a plot, it will highlight in the Data Navigator. So we can also see what the plot number is simply by clicking on it and looking in our Data Navigator. We can also see the Layout Navigator which has things organized by page. So right now we only have one page. If we wanted to insert a second page, we could come down here to the tabs, add multiple pages, and you'll see that they show up as we add them in our layout navigator. We can delete them from our layout navigator. And then if we open that page up, it's going to have everything that's on that page here, whether it has data in it or not. So here's our 4 plots that have data files in them. We also have our gate view, which is here, and then we have our gate statistics. And as we click on them, they will highlight as appropriate to show us where they are. If we're looking at a gate statistics plot, you'll see that the plot that gate statistics is associated with will also highlight. So that way we can click on this gate statistics and we know exactly where it's coming from. So this particular gate statistics plot comes from this one. If we were to insert another one here, you'll see that if we highlight this one lights up. And if we highlight this one lights up. So that way we can try to keep ourselves organized and we know exactly where everything's coming from. Okay. When it comes to other statistics, as I said, all statistics are specific to the plot where they came from. And so that takes us to tokens. And so you'll see these statistics that are here in our plots. If we click on one of these text boxes, you'll see that they highlight in gray. And if it's highlighted in gray, that means it's a token. So a token is just an FCS Express word for a piece of information. That information can be a statistic, or it can even be a keyword from the data file where it came from. It can be the name of the gate, things like that. So anytime you see a token in FCS Express, you can always double click on it to have the properties open up so you can see where it's coming from and what that information is. So for our 32.94% of our lymph gate, I'm going to double click on it. You'll see this edit statistic window pop up. It's going to tell us exactly what plot that it comes from. As we add plots, we're going to get a list of them here. And there'll be an option to look at the little thumbnail so you can actually kind of look at it and say, okay, yes, that's coming from the right plot, the right data file. If we come for number format, we can change the number of decimals for that particular stat. So maybe we only want 1 decimal. And if we go to statistic, we can see the actual statistic that was added here. So this is the lymph gate. It's the percent gated cells from the plot. And there's a number of other, so all the gates are actually listed here, all of the different statistics that you can have, you can use here that are built in with the software are listed here. So if you wanted to change the statistic, you certainly could do so. If I wanted it to be the number of events here and hit OK, I can do that. And then now we're looking at 3,798 events that are in that lymph gate. And if I don't like that, I can double click back on it, change it back to where it was, or I can just hit the undo button. Oops, not the save button just yet. Hit the undo button, and it will take me back to this percentage. Okay. For other ways of having a statistics added to your layout, we can do a custom, what is I like to think of as a custom table. So if we go to the Insert tab, choose a text box. I'm going to insert a text box here. And then go to the Text tab and choose Insert Table. We can choose we can choose the number of columns or rows that we have here. So I'm just going to insert a couple of rows. You can always add more or take them away after the fact. I'm going to insert. So here we've got our table here. And then we can just drag and drop into this table all of the different statistics or different information that we want. And so this is a good way for us to create something that could look like this, but is very custom to what we want it to look like. Okay, so let's say we have here, and then maybe we have gated cells here. And for this one, we want our lymphs. So I can just drag and drop elements from my layout directly into this table. So if I want, say I want the percent gated cells here, I can take this gate, drag and drop it. Notice that it pops back to where it was, drop it, and then just choose the statistic that I want. If the gate is what I dragged into the table, it's going to automatically default to that gate. So that's kind of nice. I don't have to worry about picking the right gate here. Then I just pick the statistic that I want. Certainly can change the number format as needed and then hit OK, right? And then that statistic is here. I can also drag and drop a plot. So let's say I want all events. And again, the plot will snap back to where it was. And let's say for this, I just want to know the number of events for my whole entire file. And then that will be listed here. As we move these gates, again, everything updates in real time. Of course, my all events doesn't update because I'm looking at the events of the entire file. But as I move my percentages, everything will update. Say I also want something from one of my quads, and drag and drop this one in here. Choose for this one, it's the upper left. I could also come here and choose the gate if I wanted to. So for this one, it's quad 1 up here, or I can choose the upper left. They're both exactly the same thing, and in the back end of the software, it's referring to the same statistics. So you can choose whichever one you want, whatever's easiest for you to find. I find the upper left and lower right's a little bit easier for me visually to choose, but whatever works for you. And then I want the percent gated cells. Okay, so here's our 15.37. I'm going to go ahead and add an extra row here. Table, insert row below. We'll add a couple rows to that. Okay. We can also insert keywords into this as our tokens as well. So maybe we'll just maybe I have patient names here, right? So I can insert another box or text box, drag and drop it. And this time I'm going to choose keyword token. And then use the ellipsis to generate a list of all the keywords that were added as part of the metadata of the data file itself. So whatever information was inserted into this data file when we exported it from the instrument will be here. We can add things like the name of the cytometer, the serial number, the date, things were collected, things like that. We can scroll through and see all the different options are here. I do think I have some other, here we go. Could just do I have any patient names here? I do. Here we go. So we'll just use this guy. Right. So now we have our patient name here. We could certainly insert our sample ID, the date, anything like that. Okay. So now we have this nice customizable table. I can come to my text tab, highlight it, and really kind of make this look, make this look however I want. If I want to be different colors, if I want it to be a different size, can undo when we make a mistake, things like that. Okay. Another way we can do statistics is using our integrated spreadsheets. So if we come up to our Insert tab and I choose Spreadsheet, it's going to give me a new spreadsheet option. I can give it a name if I want to and hit OK. And here you'll see that it looks just like an Excel spreadsheet. It also works just like an Excel spreadsheet. So if I were to come here, oops, if I were to come here and start putting some numbers here, I can use the same formulas and highlight them in the same way that I would in Excel, and it will do that. The really kind of cool thing though is that I can bring statistics or data from my dot plots into the spreadsheet in order to do my calculations. So let's say, for example, I want to do a CD4 CD8 ratio. That's a little bit more common in clinical laboratories, but other labs do all different kinds of ratios or other custom calculations where that they might not already be in as part of the software. Okay, so let's say we're going to do a CD4 and a CD8 ratio. So I can come to this plot, drag and drop it into a cell of the spreadsheet, choose statistics token. And for this one, I want my CD4% ratio or my CD4% gated cells. Here's our statistic. And then I'm going to drop it again. This time we're going to do our lower right. This is our CD8 percentage. Okay. And then our CD4 8 ratio. Fix that. 4 ratio. And then I would just do whatever formula that I would have done in Excel. So we'll click this, divided by this, and hit OK. And so there's our CD4/8 ratio here. As I said, everything updates in real time. So as I'm moving things around, that statistic updates. So I only have to calculate it once. And I can leave it in this spreadsheet if I want to, or I can use it as the calculation and then drag and drop something from this cell into my custom table. So if I click on this and I drop it here, and I call this, oh, here, I can hide this. I can just delete this. And now that ratio will still update in real time in the backend. So that spreadsheet is still part of my layout. I just can't see it here. And I've done all these, and I've done calculations here, and I've used them to add to my table. Okay. If I want to see that spreadsheet, it's important to note that that spreadsheet is here. It's still part of your layout. So if you wanted to truly delete it, then we would want to go in and we would want to go into our data navigator under view data. So we can see that spreadsheet here. We can either delete it from here, and that would delete it completely from the layout, or we can drag and drop it back out oops, into our layout. And now the spreadsheet is back again, right? So we could go ahead and use this to do all different kinds of calculations, and then either insert them somewhere in the layout or keep them as part of the spreadsheet. One of the kind of cool things is if you go up here to our, if we move this out, or if we go up to our format tab and our spreadsheet tab under layout, there is an option to turn off the grid lines and headers of our spreadsheet. So if we wanted to, or to even format what this looks like. So we can highlight this, give it some grids, and then turn off our grid lines and headers. Oops. And I always forget that. I'm going to put a little space here. I'm going to insert a column here and a row, turn off our grid lines and headers. And then we can actually use this as our table in our layouts. We don't even have to create a custom table if we don't want to. We can actually create a table directly in our spreadsheet, make it look pretty, and then turn off the grid lines and headers. So however you want to use your spreadsheets, you could certainly do it that way as you want. Added the wrong thing here. Okay. All right. Now, so far, we've only looked at one file at a time. So usually about this time, people will start asking, okay, I have 8 other samples in my data list. How do I look at this analysis for across all of my different data files? So when you're in the layout immediately, you can simply click on the blue iteration numbers to move from one file to another. If I click here, see, we'll go to sample 2 and then sample 3. You'll see everything updates in real time as we go. You'll see that everything in the table updates, so including this keyword token here of our patient name as we move from data file to data file. The data file in the plot changes, and that means the token will change as well. So all of this will update as we go through. So there's no need to draw this multiple times for all of our data files, right? We just draw it once, and then we iterate through our data to see the changes, okay? I'm going to delete this guy to get this out of the way since we have our custom table here. One other thing I like to show really quick is how to use a spreadsheet to look at multiple data files across all of our files in our layout itself. So let's say we wanted to insert a bar chart into our layout. We want a chart that compares some of these statistics, right? So we could do that with a spreadsheet as well. So I'm going to click on spreadsheet. We're going to insert a brand new one. Put this here for the time being. And then let's say we want to have a bar chart of our lymph percentage and maybe our CD3 percentage. So I'm going to come here, grab all of the samples in my data list, drag and drop them into our plots. Let's see, and for the first one, I'm just going to insert a keyword with our sample names and IDs. Okay, so now we have all the sample IDs here. Actually, let's do this a little differently here. Let's give ourselves a title first. Sample ID. Let's drag and drop this here. Keyword. Sample ID. Okay, so now we have all of our sample IDs here for all 9 of our files. And then I'm going to also add some more statistics. I'm going to drag and drop again. This time we'll do statistics. And for this one, let's do the length in the CD3 percentages. Percent parent. Turn this guy off. Okay, so now we have 2 different percentages here. So we have our lymph percentage and our CD3 percentage. Once I have all the stats that I want in our spreadsheet, then I can come up to the Insert tab, choose our bar chart, insert this here for the moment. I'm going to go actually hide this. I'm just going to delete it. And again, remember it's in the background, so it's still there. There we go. So now we have our bar chart here. And so here's the percent lymphs, percent gated of our lymph population across all of our percentages that's in our layout. Again, everything updates in real time across all of our files. So as I move this gate around, it will update as well as we go. We can also change the data that's actually on this bar chart here by clicking on the X and Y axis. So if I wanted to look at the CD3, I could put it here as well. And if we click on this bar or this bar chart and we come over here to our formatting window, so our formatting window is still up here. If it's not docked, we can come to the Format tab, choose any one of these to format. So these are all of the different things that you can format about the objects that are in your layout. As we click on the different ones, you'll see different things light up or different things happen here in the drop-down menu that you can format. So if we come to our bar chart and we go to the drop-down and do overlays, there's a number of different things we can format about this chart, about what it looks like. We can change the color. We can change what these bars look like. We can add error bars if we want to. We can add different overlays. So we have multiple bars here. So there's a number of different ways that we can customize this chart. Let's see. Somebody asked about the box I just unchecked. So I think you were talking about, let me insert this back in real quick. So here's my spreadsheet again. When oops, no, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to close this so we can see this a little bit better. Okay. When I added some data here, I'm bringing over multiple data files across all of our the files that are in our data list. I'm going to bring it over again. The keyword. So I'm going to add a different stat here. Let's do maybe our CD4 population. The box that I unchecked is under the data source. So when we are going through our data list, as we're batch processing, and we're going to get to batch processing here in a second, the files move through the list. So they go one right after the other. So as they batch through, they go next, next, next. In this particular spreadsheet, I don't want each of these tokens to change as I'm going through batch processing. I want them to stay static because I'm having multiple data files here. So I just unchecked this, and then that way each of these tokens will actually stay tied to the data file that I put them in there. As opposed to changing as I move them through, right? So I'm going to uncheck that. And now notice when I click these iteration numbers, the data files change here because I'm only showing one at a time, but they don't change in my spreadsheet because I already have them all here. So that can be really useful if you're bringing multiple data files into your spreadsheet at one time. You can change it so that they don't iterate through, whereas everything else, when you're only looking at one at a time, you want them to iterate through, okay? Positive. And since I added this here, this now shows up in my bar chart and I can change it accordingly. Okay. All right. So we have our layout built here. So the next question is batch processing. We can do that by going to our batch and export tab. And then we're going to first start with our batch actions and reports. So batch processing, in my mind, is kind of 2 things. The first question is what sort of exports do you want at the end of your analysis? Do you want a PDF? Do you want a PowerPoint presentation? Do you want an Excel spreadsheet? Do you want all of those things? Are those the things you're going to be creating every single time at the end of your analysis? Then we can list those here so that those tasks will happen every single time at the end of the analysis. The other way to think about batch processing is, how do I apply this layout across all of my data files. Because if you remember, as we're building this and we're only looking at one data file at a time. And if I want to look at sample 2, then I have to click on sample 2. And if I want 3, then I look on sample 3. But how do I get all of this data in this analysis out of FCS Express? So that's batch processing. Um, so we'll do some examples here. So let's say we want to save to a PDF. When we click on PDF, so these in the add action window, these are all the things that you can export out to. Here's a number of different settings you can choose. The big one here is choosing how you want to build your PDF. If you want an individual PDF of each one of these samples, or if you want a single PDF that has each iteration or each data file together in one PDF. I'm just going to make one PDF for now. And then we choose where we want to save it. All right. And I'm going to have it open after we save it. Okay. So I'm going to do a PDF. Let's also do a PowerPoint as well. Same thing. Do I want 9 different PowerPoints or do I want a single PowerPoint with everything in it? So let's do that. And of course, there's reasons to do one or the other. It just sort of depends on what you need. Okay. Let's open that. And then the other common thing is export to Excel. So if you're looking for an Excel spreadsheet of all of your statistics, we can do that as well. Let's save here. Okay, and we'll hit OK. For the Excel export, once we get it built here, we need to tell it what statistics we want to send out. So again, dragging and dropping is king here. So we're going to drag and drop whatever it is we want. I'm going to drag this gate here, drop it on top of our Excel. We can actually choose multiple things here. So if I hold down the Shift key or the Control key and choose the statistics that I want, we can do that. Keeping in mind that it's important, the plot that we bring them from over, make sure we pick the right one, hit OK. And so those things that we all selected will all show up here. Each one of these is going to be a different column in our Excel spreadsheet. If we've built a table, we can bring that whole table over so we don't have to do them individually. So I can bring this over, drag and drop, and it'll bring all the tokens over for that. So anything that's in this layout, we can bring and drop into our Excel spreadsheet. Okay. Once we have that built and we're ready to analyze, to batch out, we come and hit the run button. And then what it's doing is it's building those 3 things across all of our samples. You can see all the data changing in real time. And then we have it set up so everything's opening up. Here we go. As we did it. So here's our Excel spreadsheet. So we have our 9 files here and all the different statistics that we brought over. We look, here's the names of our statistics. Okay. Nope. And then here's our PDF. So each page, because remember we created a PDF that has one PDF of all of our iterations. So each page, if we had multiple pages, it would be page 1, 2, and 3, and then page 1, 2, and 3 of the next one. So as we scroll down, we can see that all of this is changing. Remember when we unchecked that box, we did not want this plot or this bar chart to change because we already had all of our files on it. So that's why this chart is not changing because it's already here, but everything else is iterating through all of our files. And then we also have our PowerPoint. Let me pull this over here. So here's our PowerPoint. You'll see that each one of these is our different pages, and it looks just like what it was in FCS Express. In this case, if we had had something in the gray space here, it would have shown up in the gray space of our PowerPoint presentation. It just wouldn't have shown up on our PDF because it doesn't make a PDF out of the gray space, but it will in PowerPoint. So if you do have things in the gray space, it will be part of the export. And then kind of the cool thing about this is everything is exported as a vector graphic. So each of these are individual images. It's not like a single low resolution export. So if we come into PowerPoint, we can right click and ungroup this. And when we do that, we can get all of the different pieces of the image. So for example, and I can edit this accordingly. So if instead of this saying side this, I can always just do scatter here. Or if I decided I didn't want this to say compensated, I just wanted to say sample one, I can come here and modify this if I want to, without having to go back to FCS Express. So if you wanted to do it on every single page, it might be beneficial to go back to FCS Express, change it there, and then re-export it. But if you want to just do like a one-time fix here, you can do that with the way these graphics work. And it's really kind of cool. And the idea is that it just saves you some time. These are high resolution images, so we can export, or we can increase the size. You can see that, whoops, they stay nice and crisp, so you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to close this. Okay, so we have our layout built. Our last step is to save this as something that we can use going forward. So if we go to our save as, file save as, you'll see that we have a couple options down here as the different types that we can save, right? So if I click on this, we can see we can either save it as unlinked, linked, or embedded. So unlinked is a blank template. So we can use this layout going forward. If we've done this experiment multiple times, we want to keep analyzing it. We don't want to have to rebuild this every single time. So I can come in, save this as an unlinked layout, call it blank template, and hit save, okay? We can also save it associated with our data. So we can choose it to be either linked or embedded. So these are kind of different variations of a theme. So linked means it saves the file paths of the data files that are here. Let's call this linked layout. It will, when you reopen the layout, it will go find the data files and bring them back in from where they're located. Okay. If you save it as embedded, embedded actually saves the data file as part of the layout itself. So the difference is if you send somebody a linked layout and they don't also have the data files, then FCS Express doesn't know where to find the data files and it can't open the data. Whereas if you send them an embedded layout, the data files are part of the layout itself, and that way they don't have to have the data files separately. The difference is that an embedded layout can be quite large because it saves those data files as part of the layout. Okay. So we've saved those layouts. I'm going to close this and we'll open them so you can see what they look like. So we'll start with our blank template. So remember, our blank template's not associated with any data. It just has all the plots and all the gates are still there and it's ready to analyze. And that's why it says error here, because it's looking for data. So all we have to do here is navigate to whatever data we want to analyze, bring it into the data list, and then I'm going to populate that. I'm going to click on one of these data files. There's this little spreadsheet looking button here. So we can click this arrow and do change data on all plots. It's going to load the data in. Oops. And then I can bring my data files in to this. And they should populate. I'll have to pick the right one. But then they are here. If we want a linked layout, so if we want to see our existing analysis. So we did an analysis on our spreadsheet, on our data files, and then 6 months later, we want to look at it again. We can open that linked or embedded layout, either one. And when we do that, the data comes automatically in with the layout itself, and it populates it automatically. So you don't have to do that as well. Okay. All right. And with that, we've gone from our blank layout all the way to a finished layout that we can now use going forward. If you try this out on your own, feel free to go to our website. We have a free demo there where you can download the software and give it a try yourself. It's free for 30 days. It has everything turned on so that you can try it out. And if you need any help with that, please email us at our support desk. It's support@denovosoftware.com. There's a group of 7 of us. We cover 5 different time zones. So there's always somebody who's available to help you out. We also offer free one-on-one kind of training sessions. So we can get on a call together and we can actually look at your data and have you share your screen and we can kind of walk through and help you get your layouts built. So with that, if there's any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat box or check out our website and check out our resources there.